Hey, welcome back everybody to the next round of the NRG Pioneer 5K trial. Once again, I'm your host Mason, joined still with Devin. Devin, are you excited to get into round two?
Oh yeah, I think it's going to be maybe a little bit less mono green devotion than we saw last round. Not quite a mono green mirror, and I believe we have some interesting decks here and some interesting players that we want to discuss in the feature match area. And I think it's going to be a pretty fun one.
Yeah, so we're actually having team coverage. Becky Bell jumping on down into our feature match area today. She is playing Rakdos mid-range, which is, arguably 1A or 1B of the format. And we're going to hop in to that game here right now. But I believe Becky's playing against Mono Green Devotion as well from Jack. Or from, sorry. Okay, so we got misinformed, but don't worry. Harian Firer is here. So Harlan, good friend of mine and a former SCG Tour mainstay. We're going to have Harlan versus Zachary Powers on the Gruul Aggro deck. Devin, you're a pretty big fan of the Gruul Aggro deck, right?
Yeah, this I've been playing a lot. I guess I've been playing a lot of both of the Gruul decks, but there's basically two different distinct versions. There's the Gruul Aggro deck, which is more about Atarka's command, a lot of low to the ground stuff, and this is what we're going to see here from Zachary Powers. Now, the one unfortunate part about the Gruul Atarka red deck is the mono white aggro matchup, excuse me, I can't speak, is really bad. The combination of Thalia kind of really making it so it's hard to cast your Atarka's command. They have Brave the Elements, which can make it very hard for you to attack into creatures, especially with open mana. There's just a lot of things about this matchup that is really rough for the Gruul aggro deck. So, Thalia and Adeline is kind of the perfect curve for Harlan as well here.
Yep. And Harlan getting in the red zone here, making a soldier thanks to Adeline's attack trigger. Knocked Zach down to 15.
Yeah, and the thing about the Atarka red deck is it doesn't really do that well at killing. It can't kill 4 toughness creatures, so this Adeline is probably going to be on the battlefield for quite some time, and that also makes life, really hard for Zach.
100%. Is Rimrock Knight a newer addition to this deck? I feel like I haven't seen that card before, or is this some spice? Because it seems like it's kind of nice.
So originally, the person who I copied this deck list from was Sam Bogue, Islands Go Sam on Twitter, and he was playing, I think, a couple of copies of Rimrock. I actually went up to 3, and potentially even I was thinking about going up to 4 copies. It's just nice because it triggers prowess, so it's good for your Swiftspear. The fact that it's just flexible because it's a 1-mana spell on your Bushwhacker turns, because there's also 4 copies of Reckless Bushwhacker, so it helps in that regard. And sometimes it's just the fact that it is a colorless and a red 2-drop, allowing you to be like you're able to cast it off of a Burning-Tree Emissary, can be important as well. So it's not the flashiest card, but it serves a role and it serves a couple, roles. It does what it does pretty well. So,
yep. And we're gonna see a block your Legion Loyalist and then cast Atarka's command, and looks like Harlan's gonna be like, okay, sounds good. I'll go to 13, and I think Zach gets hit for 8. Yeah, down to 8. So close.
yeah, the defensive Atarka's command is not something you see very often, and when you're doing it, you're usually in a bad spot. So, yeah, defensive Atarka's command when you have a creature that is unable to block, not exactly where Zachary wants to be. Now, with 2 blockers here and Harlan still at 13, you could see something like maybe a Bushwhacker plus another, maybe a Bushwhacker, and see, I guess you can't even go Bushwhacker. Or excuse me, Burning-Tree Emissary, Bushwhacker, and Atarka's command, because the Atarka's command would cost 3. So even that's off the table here because the Thalia's, messing with the Atarka's command, making it cost an additional more. So this is going to be tough for Zachary here. We'll see what his follow up is.
Yeah, it looks like we have the Pathway in play on the green side as our backwards smoky card. And we're taking a little bit of a think, trying to figure out how we're going to get through this. And Harlan has Brave the Elements lined up.
Yeah, and that's something that I talked about before. Is like Harlan is just in a position where he does not care what Zachary has. He can just make whatever block he wants to, because if the worst case scenario happens, and well, I guess that's the worst case scenario for Zach. He just had nothing anyways.
Yeah, Zach just made an attack. Sometimes you got to get in the red zone, just kind of hope that the opponent doesn't make a mistake or makes a mistake. And Harlan was like, I don't know if I can with Brave the Elements in hand. So we're going to go over to the sideboard. Let's see if we can pull up one of these and kind of look at what the players have. Looking at Harian Firer's sideboard here, we have 4 wedding announcements, 3 Deck and Stone, 3 Portable Hole, 3 Rest in Peace, and 2 Thalia, Heretic, Cathar. That's a 3-mana one from Innistrad. Which one? What are you liking in here?
Harlan doesn't need a lot of help in this matchup. He's already, I think pretty far ahead. But getting the portable holes as additional copies of cheap removal, those are kind of a slam dunk. And then maybe you could go to the Thalias on the play. I don't think I would like them on the draw because you already have 4 Brutal Cathar, 4 Adeline, you have enough threes. But I think on the play, you could maybe justify bringing those in. But yeah, really on the draw, we're just looking at the portable holes, and I think not much else.
Makes total sense here. Maybe we can pull up Zachary Powers' deck as well. I'm inclined to believe you there. I think structurally, like you mentioned, the decks just line up well. Meanwhile, with Zachary Power here on the Gruul Aggro deck, that sideboard's going to be 4 Rending Volley, 3 Kari's of Expertise, 3 Lava Coil, 2 Expendable Frenzies, 2 Squee the Dubious Monarch, and 1 Hazaret the Fervent. What are you liking in this matchup?
Now, I did mention that game 1 is kind of tough for Zachary, but there are a lot of tools here in the sideboard. There's 4 copies of Rending Volley, which is probably the single best removal spell you could have against the mono white deck. Being 1 mana, just being the most efficient card, also being able to answer Adeline because no other card in your deck does that. I guess you have Lava Coils. But yeah, we're going to bring in a lot of removal, Rending Volley, and the Lava Coils. That's 7 there. I've no pun intended, I've been experimenting bringing in Experimental Frenzy in this matchup because the kind of the way that I view it is they're very good at kind of like stopping you, and you need to kind of go pretty wide. But that one's a little awkward against Thalia, so I don't know if that one is necessarily where Zachary wants to be. But the 7 removal spells are kind of very clearly slam dunks here. Can maybe upgrade some of these creatures that are harder to attack, like the Rimrock Knights and the Bomats. Those really aren't going to get through. So you want to have the cards like Kari Sev, which is a lot harder to block. Stuff like Bushwhacker and Emissary give you more explosive draws. So I think that's really where Zachary wants to be post board.
That makes total sense. I do like the idea of experimenting, though, with Experimental Frenzy, like you mentioned. Having that sort of like can overwhelm, but also if I bring in all these spot removal spells, maybe I just play this control-ish game. Bonecrusher Giant, we've seen from the Rakdos deck, it's kind of the best aggro hate card printed in Pioneer, and your deck does sport a copy of that. And so, like, you can kind of play this sort of, mid-rangey game plan if, you change maybe the deck a little bit too going forward. Looks like let's hop on in. The players are about to be shuffling up, but I am very curious to see kind of how Zachary approaches this game post board, because it seems like a hard matchup, but like you mentioned, there's a little bit of wiggle room and a little bit of player skill expression.
Right. And, obviously the fact that Zachary is on the play for game 2, just being able to have those really fast starts with Burning-Tree Emissary and Reckless Bushwhacker. Funny thing is, we noted in Harlan's deck, there's 3 copies of Soldier of the Pantheon. And I played an RCQ with this Gruul Aggro deck, and I lost in the finals to Mono White Humans. And one thing that came up was my opponent had turn 1 Soldier of the Pantheon, and I had 3 Burning-Tree Emissaries, which is normally really good. But if you don't have a removal spell for the Soldier of the Pantheon, you can't attack with those Burning Trees because it has protection from multicolored. So we'll have to see if that comes up as well.
A big thing. Yeah. Soldier of the Pantheon's a card a lot of players are talking about cutting when Brothers were coming out to get the new recruiting officer, which is a 2/1 that you can like pay 4 mana to look at your top 4 to put a creature in hand. But Champion of the Parish Soldier of the Pantheon does have some stuff. Let's go down to the feature match area as the players all mulligan here. Harlan going to 6. Looks like Zachary has kept the 7. But yeah, I'm curious to see how this white deck kind of evolves, because it is one of the bigger players in the format, but we don't see it get as much love and appreciation from the player base.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people like to play the mono white deck because it boasts a decent matchup against mono green, just being low to the ground, Brutal Cathar. There's a lot of problems in the mono white deck that the mono white deck presents to the green deck. But traditionally speaking, I think a lot of people kind of associate, mono white creature deck having a bad matchup against Rakdos all removal, like the Rakdos midrange deck. When it comes down to it, though, I think that matchup is closer than maybe a lot of people think it is, and I think that the mono white deck, especially, Harlan has 4 copies of Wedding Announcement in the sideboard. That is obviously one of the best tools that he could have access to against something like Rakdos midrange. But I think that maybe is why people kind of shy away from it a little bit, is they kind of have this assumed presumption that it is not that's the best against Rakdos. But I think the matchup is somewhat close.
Sure. Yeah, I think the big innovation of adding 4 Wedding Announcement to the sideboard did a lot to where if you draw those cards, the Rakdos matchup gets a lot closer. Looks like Harlan is going to keep the 6, and we're going to have a Karplusan Forest. I think is how you say that one's name. You're the boomer. What's that one's name? How do you say that? I don't know the words.
Karplusan Forest.
Karplusan. It's pretty close. Speaking portable hole. Take out the 1-drop. This was a huge get, by the way, from Dominaria United. We're kind of joking about it right now, but Gruul having a playable mana base is nice, and looks like we kept a 1-lander from Zachary. And
Yeah, I keep my fair share of one-landers with this deck, and I'm going to assume that Zachary has at least one, if not two, copies of Burning-Tree in his hand, so we might see some fireworks with that second land off the top here.
yeah, drew the Stomping Ground, always had it. Clearly, he's playing around Knight of the White Orchid from Harlan, just not wanting to let Harlan have any sort of advantage possible. So we do see a Burning-Tree Emissary, and this might be why we have Burning-Tree into Rimrock Knight. It's hard to mulligan Burning-Tree hands.
Yeah, not the most exciting start for turn 2, but still just being able to play two things. And this is a massive play from Harlan here because Zachary had to use his mana, kind of felt priced into it, missing a land drop, but so casting the Play with Fire. And Harlan with the backbreaking play of Specialist, get back my bodyguard, protecting the Specialist, which is a 3/2 lifelink, makes it very hard for if Zachary wants to trade for that thing, Harlan's going to get a little bit of life on the way out.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and if you're watching at home, Harlan has the Dauntless Bodyguard upside down because it cannot attack due to this extraction specialist. So just making sure everyone knows, like, hey, this can't attack. Harlan is somebody who will always kind of make sure to help the opponent out and is one of those top players that's just like, rewind it. I know you didn't mean to do that, And so very clear to see him do that sort of thing. As we see double Rending Volley to take out the extraction specialist is a 3/2 lifelink going to smash in for 5 here.
Yeah, and that's, oh my God. I was going to say that's a tough exchange for Zachary to make because it's essentially a 2-for-1 because the Specialist is, got back a card. You're trading 2 cards for the Specialist. And now Harlan just has another Specialist. Now you just got to run it back, right? Just got to discard 2 more cards to kill it. So, yeah, really, really tough for Zachary here.
Yeah, that's going to be rough as we are going to see Zachary attack in and see if Harlan wants to even block. Looks like he's fine, just maybe racing.
Yeah, with Harlan on 14, you kind of funny to just see, all right, I'll just take it, no big deal, just take the 5. But yeah, the 3/2 gets life on the way back. The Specialist being able to have lifelink is very good in the racing situations. And if Zachary's attacking, he probably doesn't have a removal spell because he'd probably just fire it off and pre-combat to try and force some action. So yeah, this is a pretty good start for Harlan. He can kind of easily race with this 3/2 lifelink. Looks like there's an Adeline, but decided not to play that one pre-combat. I'm assuming he wants to hold up Brave the Elements here, because I think I saw a copy of that in his hand as well.
Yeah, it looks like Harlan has Brave and Soldier of the Pantheon. So kind of mentioned that interaction you talked about, right? Checking the Burning Tree and just sort of waiting to play the Adeline once we're not exposing the Adeline to, maybe the third Rending Volley. Harlan's someone who's very aware, like, oh, if my opponent kept all these 1-drops, it makes sense they have a lot of 1-mana removal. And we do see the Stomp get Brave the Elements, so that Bonecrusher Giant is going to go to the graveyard instead of going on an adventure.
Yeah, that's such a massive turn there for Harlan because the soldier checked the Burning-Tree Emissary. So, maybe if, first it's looking on Zachary's side, if that stomp does resolve, you get to kill the soldier, which lets you attack for 5, and you can also get the Bonecrusher half, but the Brave the Elements being able to not only counter the removal spell, but also effectively counter the 4/3 was a very, very good exchange here for Harlan.
100%. And then we see Phoenix Trick off the top. One of the new gets from Dominaria United. A really nice sort of card here. We're going to see Zachary attack in 4/5 and, can't attack that Burning-Tree Emissary because Soldier would just eat it for free.
So yeah, chat bringing up. So Stomp it's weird. So there's additional text on Stomp that says damage can't be prevented, but if a creature has protection, it also can't be targeted by the spell. So that's what's countering the Bonecrusher Giant. Not the fact that the damage can't be prevented. It's the fact that you can't target the creature. It's no longer a legal target because of the protection.
And we're gonna see Harlan here. I think take a little moment to think. I think he picked up another Adeline, so maybe on double Adeline, and might just be willing to kind of expose them now. We mentioned before Harlan wanting to kind of leave them back and protected. I think maybe de-sleeving the Adeline for a second.
Looks like double Adeline Portable Hole. So my instinct is just, I guess you could use all of your mana as well if you want to go Portable Hole plus fire up the Mutavault. It kind of depends on where Harlan wants to go. You could set with Zachary on 9. I kind of don't even hate just, Portable Hole. I guess Harlan's trying to think of how do you lose this game, right? So if you Portable Hole the Burning Tree, fire up the Mutavault, and shove with everything, that's 7 damage, putting Zachary to 2. Harlan goes up to 9. But then if we do some quick math here, the Kumano flips, and if there's an Atarka's command off the top, that's lethal damage. So it'd be 3, because it would be 4, 6, 8 from the attackers plus 3 from the command is 11. So Harlan doesn't want to make that play, doesn't want to give Zachary any kind of ways to get out of this. So I kind of like maybe just playing Adeline and attacking with the other 2 creatures, but looks like Harlan's going to go for just the Specialist attack.
Yep. And I kind of like this too because you get to offer the trade with the Burning-Tree, which kind of shrinks the board, right? And we have Adeline take over, like you mentioned, and then if you take this trade, then Harlan's up some life, and you have Portable Hold to check like the Phoenix, which is the only thing you can't really block.
Yeah, and heads up play from Harlan. So normally you would consider playing the Adeline pre-combat to get the additional attacker. But there's two things here. One, the additional attacker just gets eaten up by the Burning-Tree Emissary anyway, so there's almost no point in doing that. And two, you're also, bluffing a Brave the Elements here.
100%. And yeah, Zachary is just going to take it and fall to 9, or fall to 6, and Harlan go to 9. Looks like Harlan double checking some mass just to make sure, like you mentioned.
Yeah, with Harlan is definitely ahead this game, but it's there. Atarka's command is such a powerful card that it can really swing the tides of the game. So Harlan just doing all of the math, making sure that there's no way that he can die to a top deck Atarka's command, because that's probably the draw that Zachary's looking for at this point.
Yeah, and Harlan deploying the Adeline, kind of also selling the bluff I have Brave the Elements if the game keeps going, right? Because this Adeline attack here, post combat, looks so weird after attacking. And then we have Etching of Kumano, the flip side of Faces Tokens on. Kind of a nice card. All in, 1 mana 2/2 is on suspend.
Right. Kumano is such a massive upgrade to these red decks who just, before their one drop suite looked good. You had Soulscar Mage, you had Monastery Swiftspear, but this is another one that just it gets the damage, it gets, it basically 1 damage up front immediately, even if they can't remove a spell. The really nice thing about it as well is against Rakdos, if they play their 1 rare removal spell is Fatal Push. So if they go Swamp Go or something and you have, a Monastery Swiftspear in an Etching and you play the Kumano first, they can't even use their Fatal Push on turn 1, so you're kind of choking them on mana a little bit in that regard. So being a 1-drop that doesn't die to Fatal Push is very good as well. So let's do some quick math here. So Atarka's command put Harlan to 6. Okay, well, if there's... I guess if there was an Atarka's command, maybe you would attack with the Kumano too?
Yeah, maybe. I would have to assume so, right? If you were at Atarka's command. But looks like maybe we just have we only have 1 Bonecrusher Giant in the deck, right?
Yeah, only 1 Bonecrusher. So that's not really an avenue. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what it would look like. So Atarka's command, put Harlan to 6, go block there. That's 3 damage from the Phoenix chick after +1/+1. So it looks like we're just going to go trading for the Rimrock, taking 2. Now, what's Zachary's follow-up here? Looking for something, I would imagine, like a Rending Volley to be able to answer the Adeline, but we know that's not good enough because Harlan does have the 2nd copy in hand.
Third copy now. Turn. Adeline heard that she was good in the matchup and wanted to show up for her time in the sun. Yeah, this is an interesting turn here, too, because from Harlan's perspective, it's really easy to offer this to Adeline as a trade. Just like attack with Adeline. You're threatening a near lethal attack. You can attack as well with the Extraction Specialist and, maybe get across. Looks like Harlan is just going to Portable Hole.
Yeah, if you're Harlan, you kind of almost want the Adeline to die because you know that Zachary has to commit so many resources to it, and you just don't care because you have 2 more in your hand. So looks like we're going to also fire up the Mutavault here. So this is lethal if Zachary has nothing, yeah?
Yeah. And we see Harlan jam in. Adeline does have Vigilance. Trigger makes a human. Adeline's as big as you have that many creatures. So 5/4 over there. And Zachary's going to need something. Even if it just kills the 1/1 and we get a chump block, that will buy Zachary another turn. It looks like we have nothing. So Harian Firer is going to win this match in commanding fashion, the matchup. And kind of showing off why structurally this matchup can be kind of hard. And, it's going to be an uphill battle for the Gruul deck whenever playing against mono white.
Right, yeah, this is kind of one of the nightmare matchups if you are playing the Gruul Aggro or Atarka red deck is I think that you have a good matchup against mono green, but it's just very, very tough to be able to beat that mono white deck.
100%, yeah. We're going to see if we can grab Harian Firer for the interview. Harlan never wanted to turn down the camera, so we'll probably see him here in a minute after he's done sideboarding and chatting with Zachary. But yeah, I have to agree. And I think Zachary played really well and also kind of had a lot of it too, right? Like we did miss turn 2 land drop, but we had a lot of Rending Volleys, a good amount of pressure, a lot of mix. It's not like we were just all in on something and just wasn't enough.
Right. Yeah. You saw that Zachary, and I think Zachary probably kept that one lander because he felt so far behind in the matchup. It's one of those things where it's the upside keep, where your hand is pretty good. You have a burning tree, you have double rending volley. You have basically all the pieces you need with the exception of that one land. And the other thing is, if you have double rending volley and a couple one drops, you figure, okay, well, I can maybe miss a land or two because I'm still keeping up with Harlan on the battlefield. Sans something like a Thalia. Obviously, that's the nightmare scenario because then you can't even cast your rending volleys at that point. But you have enough stuff to keep up with him, and that probably a reasonable keep from Zachary's side.
Yeah, I have to agree. And there's extraction specialist, by the way. It's hard to understand how strong that combo was with Dauntless Bodyguard against that particular aggro deck, but probably against all the aggro decks or any of the removal decks. Getting that lineup is a really big selling point, I think, for the mono white deck, and one of the cool synergies the deck can kind of present.
Yeah, and normally you talk about Bonecrusher Giant being so good at aggro matchups because it is a 2-for-1. Specialist is the exact same thing, right? It's just, we saw that game where Zachary had to use 2 rending volleys to effectively answer the first copy. The rending volley targeting bodyguard sacked rending volley again, and then Harlan just had another one and was just up so many cards, and it was really, really impossible for Zachary to kind of claw back. I mean, Zachary did get kind of close though. We saw at the end of the game Harlan, was at 6 life. Maybe if Zachary drew a Atarka's command or something like that, maybe he could have swung the game in his favor, but not in the cards.
Yep. And sometimes it happens like that too. When you play these aggro decks, they're really, really good against mono green, right? And that's like part of the reason to play them. But you do lose a little bit of agency with something that maybe you get from playing a deck, ironically, like green, which has a lot of looking at cards, so you weirdly can could sculpt or draw a little better once you hit the later game. And then decks like Phoenix, right, which we see be popular with a lot of players. That deck kind of lets you pick the card you want at the kind of moment you want. So sometimes you just don't draw, but still really impressive. And I do think both those decks are decks that are a little underappreciated by the player base, and sport good green matchups, and are not the end of the world against the other decks.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing about the mono white deck. It just has a really good curve and 4 copies of Brave the Element, so it just has the ability to kind of sometimes its draws just can kind of beat anything. You have these really fast starts that involve like with Thalia's Lieutenant, all that kind of stuff allows you to go wide, and Brave the Elements just being an excellent card against removal as well. So
Yeah, well, let's go talk to Harlan. I want to hear what he has to say about this. Harlan, buddy, it's good to see you here in the booth.
It's both of our first energies in a sense.
Yeah, if you look at it that way. How are you enjoying your first energy, by the way? Congratulations on B2O so far.
Yeah, it's been fun. It definitely brings me back to, playing like weekly tournaments. It's good to be back in a convention center again, for sure. Been enjoying it.
Nice, awesome.
yeah. I wanted to just talk about the deck choice. So mono white humans. Is there any specific reason why you chose that deck? Did you think the matchups were good?
So
talk to me about
I
that.
showed up with a mono red deck. Mono red is not very good. Also, mono green, which is easily the most popular deck in the room, is playing Lovestruck Beast now, which just makes the mono red deck cry, kind of. Just the 5/5, the 2 different bodies, the 1/1's good. So I was pretty off that, and then mono white was the deck I could find. I do kind of like it. I have always liked, attacking with creatures, contrary to popular belief. And it definitely feels good against green on the play. Like if I win the die roll, I feel pretty favored in the matchup. If they win the die roll, I got some work to do. But yeah, I think the matchups are pretty okay. So
awesome. We saw on social media, kind of tying in the storyline, you weren't tempted to play Zach Allen's Esper control deck?
Oh no. I saw the photo that Zach took later, and I showed it to Bill Caminos, who's the other person in the photo, and I was like, this is what pure joy looks like. We were just laughing at how bad the Esper deck was. So yeah, it was not good. Zach managed to get a red-black sack deck together instead.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Yeah. Didn't even play the Esper deck, huh?
No.
Oh,
It was not good.
Heartbreaking to hear. I was really hoping Zach was 2-0 or something like that. We could get that head off, you two set the narrative up a little bit ahead of time. But regardless, how is kind of, life going with Magic and everything too, like outside of Magic?
Good. I've definitely cut back on my Magic playing. There's not, so like this is really the only like series running right now, and these tournaments are really far for me. Like this would have been a 10-hour drive. I did some planes, trains, and automobiles to get here for the team event. because I had kind of already locked in with Zach and Will Kruger. But yeah, I've just been super busy with life and work, running my own business and stuff. So.
Yeah, it's we mentioned you used to be a big mainstay on the SCG circuit. We see you every weekend, and now you've been kind of gone for a little bit, kind of like the Avatar. You left us when you needed it most. And so I've had a lot of players just kind of curious on what's going on in the Harlan life.
Yeah, no. I still play some leagues occasionally. I have pretty little free time. I mostly play like some Settlers of Catan online in my evenings now.
Sure.
I've been playing a lot of Marvel Snap. That game's great. Everybody should pick up Snap. The sooner you start, the better. It takes forever to get all the cards. Seriously.
Yeah, I do have you in my DMs asking some stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
I did want to talk about one thing related to Magic, though, because you kind of helped innovate Minsc and Boo into the Legacy format. We saw you and Zach Allen work on the Boo Blade deck, which you got second at one of the SCGs with a couple months ago. And then that deck's kind of evolved into the 4-color deck. How did you kind of identify, Minsc and Boo as such a powerful card? Because it was kind of under the radar for a little bit.
So I don't know if I can even take credit for it. I saw a lot of people tweeting about it all the time in their like paper Legacy events. And so I was like getting pretty close to like the Baltimore tournament where I played the deck. And I was already playing like blue-white, splashing green for Carpet of Flowers. And I was splashing red for Pyroblast. So I could technically cast the card. And I just was like, I tweeted and I was like, all right, is this card actually really good? Because it wasn't on Magic Online. So I couldn't play any games with it. And people were like, yeah, it's insane. And then a lot of people were asking me if I thought it was good. And I was like, I have no idea. I've never played with it. So I went to my LGS, bought 2 of them. And I played one main and one sideboard in case they were bad. And then they were really good. So we did really well.
Yeah, me and Mason watched a lot of coverage yesterday. And I think that card had a 100% win rate when it was cast on camera. And it did look quite good every time we saw it cast.
Yeah, it's a pretty messed up card. It's kind of ridiculous. It is really weak to Karakas, though, so you have to have like a plan for that. But yeah, I mean, there's some counterplays, but yeah, if the card just resolves, it's gonna win the game most of the time. So
nice. We do love to see it. Well, before I let you go, I do got to ask you one last thing, Harlan. Now, you went to an American establishment that your teammate yesterday would say is the best restaurant all factors considered. How was your Chipotle experience?
Oh, it's amazing. Do you know that I actually was the one lobbying for Chipotle last night?
No.
Yeah, we went to 2 other places that both had waits, and I was like, dude, I've been saying Chipotle since before we left the site, and we ended up at Chipotle. So you heard it here first. Just start at Chipotle. Your experience will be better for it.
Nice. Look, I can confirm that Chipotle is really, really good.
Yeah,
maybe not the best, but it is quite good.
It's not even it's like the best quality or like the cheapest, right? It's a best overall, right? Your experience is going to be good. It's going to be consistent. It's going to be pretty cheap. Like, obviously, you're never going to have the food's never going to be better than like a $60 plate of steak or whatever, right? But it's $10 for a whole burrito. It'll just make you feel warm and cozy inside.
It beat that.
Let it help you.
What's your burrito order if you're doing it here? We gotta know.
So I lock in every time the same burrito. It's brown rice, black beans, steak, and then mild, medium, sour cream, cheese, and lettuce. Only way to
that sideboard guide was free. That was so helpful.
Free 99.
I love that. Well, Harlan, we're gonna let you go enjoy the rest of your round, and we're gonna go watch some more Magic. So we'll see you later, buddy. All right. Well, it's good to have Harlan there in the booth. He used to be someone who we saw at all of those paper events, big mainstay of the SCG, the leader of Team Nova before. It's good to see him back in the trenches kind of playing, even if he had to kind of move a long distance in order to do it, but we're happy to see him here in the event.
And we got a free sideboard get out of it too. So if you ever want to go to Chipotle, there's your order.
And now we're going to hop into match number 2 here, our backup one. Looks like we have Cliff versus James. A Fires of Incarnation deck versus Mono White Humans. Devin, what do you think of the Fires deck? Because this is an exciting one.
Yeah, so we've seen a lot of Fires of Invention decks really pop up recently. This one is kind of, I believe this is a Yorion deck, so this is more of like the 5-color with Enigmatic Incarnation. The other version that we've also seen was the one that we saw yesterday, Karuga Fires, which is more of like a 60 card, just a 4-color deck, not really focusing on the 5th color, but This deck in particular is trying to use it's almost trying to mimic like what the modern versions did with the stuff like abundant growth. You see Nihilia's presence on the battlefield, which is an interesting one because it makes your lands all 5 types, which allows you to cast a Leyline Binding for 1 mana, and also is stuff that you can blink with Yorion. But the reason we're playing all these kind of, gadgets, as it were, these enchantments, is because we want to sacrifice them to Enigmatic Incarnation, which is essentially, for those of you who may know, a birthing pod for enchantments.
Yeah, and really interesting and cool find. It got a big help from this card, Leyline Binding, in the new set.
Yeah, Leyline Binding, this is massive too. So this is, normally you wouldn't want to, this is so, okay, yep, there it is. I was going to say this. So Leyline Binding got countered by the Brave the Elements, but Cliff really doesn't care because Cliff just wants to sacrifice this binding to get a 7-drop. And we're going to see some fireworks here. This is great.
Yeah, and we've seen Brave the Elements be an all-star removal spell, but also this deck plays Yorion. So even if you stop them now, long term they're going to get Flicker to come back. And then I believe that is it's the serpent. I know everything it does, but its name.
Coma.
Nice. Looks like we're maybe hopping back here for a second. We're okay, so yeah, the game is over here. Yeah, it looks like James, table checking Coma is actually unbeatable. And after reading it, we had a little moment, a little pause. It's like, yeah, I think I'm done here. I'm on 1 land. I didn't draw another one. I'm gonna go hang out with my friends.
That was a pretty cool showcase of the Fires deck, though. Exactly what it wants to do. And it's funny how we talked about Leyline Binding being a massive printing, and then as soon as we saw that, the very next turn, Fires of Invention plus Incarnation sack at the 6-drop to get a 7, and that was a really brutal turn there for Cliff.
Yep, and so now we're gonna hop back into game number 2 here. This is a time-shifted match, so we don't have to worry about sideboarding or anything like that. It's the outcome of this is already determined. But we do see James here leading on Soldier of the Pantheon. Been an all-star so far today.
Yeah, Soldier of the Pantheon. Now, a little, not quite as, the protection not going to be as relevant in this matchup. Funnily enough, it is a 5-color deck, the Fires deck, but a lot of the removal spells are single color. You have Leyline Binding, Chain to the Rocks, things of that nature. So, as even though it has protection from multicolored, not the best against the 5-color deck, but Thalia is a massive beating because that one is going to prevent Cliff from being able to cast basically anything this turn because the binding would still cost 2 mana, same with Chain to the Rocks.
100% here. Aaron, Thalia also so good in this spot, right?
Yeah, especially, on Double Triumph. I don't think Cliff Cliff did have the binding, but couldn't cast it even if Cliff played an untapped land because, would have only had, 4 types, had the Sacred Founder, I believe. But now, we can see tap land plus a 1-mana binding, and you see, Cliff deciding if they want to main phase this or not because main phase plays around Brave the Elements. But maybe a little bit worse against a second copy of Thalia. But we are going to go for the main phase binding.
Yep, and just Fab Tech Brave the Elements, and it looks like Hopeful Initiate.
Oh boy! Now that one's. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask what that one did to be sure because I'm pretty sure it's a disenchant, right?
Yeah, so it has training, which I believe is when you attack with a creature with greater power. When it attacks with a creature with greater power, put a counter on it, and you can pay 3 to remove 2 counters from among creatures you control, so not from itself, to destroy an artifact or enchantment. So extremely powerful at being able to take care of the oh yes, act the binding. Yeah, we don't really care if you have a Thalia because we have a Titan of Industry now.
Yeah, Titan of Industry, one of the big standouts for these kind of cheaty mana decks from Streets of New Capenna. Looks going to come in here, and it looks like we're probably gaining 5 life and making a Rhino just from the touching of the life pad there. So, going to be interesting. I do think life totals are switched, by the way, on stream for you here. So, I believe that the Fires player is at 13 before the gaining of 5, potentially, and James is at 20. But we'll see if we can get that fixed. And it looks like we're waiting. It is time shifted, so we're gonna have to deal with that. But don't worry, I'm dyslexic, Devin, so the world gets to live it with me right now. It's just flip flop for us. You get used to it. Time.
Yeah, we can keep track of it.
I believe we can persevere, as we do have a Rhino into the battlefield here off the Titan of Industry.
Yeah, and that was a massive turn for Cliff here because with the Hopeful Initiate, if Cliff didn't have something backbreaking this turn, we were going to be able to activate the Hopeful Initiate to take care of either the Binding or the Incarnation. So being able to kind of convert that Binding into this massive, massive board presence in the face of the Hopeful Initiate, and even and James doesn't even have land 3 rolled up because he missed a land drop last turn. But even if James draws a land, you're basically forcing James to spend his entire turn removing 2 counters to kill that Incarnation, because if you give Cliff another activation of that or another trigger, things are going to get out of control pretty quickly, I think. Because you can also see something like Cliff. I believe if I pull Cliff's deck list, we have a Glasspool Mimic. So if we don't kill this Incarnation, we're going to go Omen of the Sea, sack Omen to get a Glasspool Mimic, and we're going to get a second Titan of Industry, and that's going to be really tough for James to beat.
That is impressive. That is one of the cool and really big selling points of this Fires of Incarnation deck, right?
Right, for sure. Just be like it's very, very toolboxy. Like if we look at the deck list, I'm going to go down here. There's 21 creatures. There's 4 copies of that. So there's 17 different one-ofs that you can get with this Incarnation. So just, there's so much flexibility. And you just have basically, as long as you have an enchantment to pair with it, you essentially have access to almost your entire deck at any given point. So
yeah, and James here is just going to play another Luminarch Aspirant, a little tight on lands, and is going to grow the team a little bit here. Does James have to find a Brave the Elements? What can James do? Because things are kind of slipping away if we do see the Glasspool Mimic line we go for.
Right, that is one thing that Cliff kind of has going James has going for him, is the fact that Brave the Elements, because even if we get, that's a pretty good turn, taking out both the Aspirants, but even if we were to Glasspool Mimic the Titan, all of the creatures would still be green. So if you could maybe get enough of a enough of a board presence, and be able to, to get to the Brave the Elements, then you could kind of punch through the Titans that way.
Yeah, we do see Thalia, Heretic, Cathar coming down here from James Newman. This is one of the techie sideboard options that the mono white deck gets. The big thing I've noticed is that it makes all non-basic lands and creatures into the battlefield tapped, which is kind of actually very good against mono green Devotion. If you're looking for a card to help against them, their Nykthos is inner tapped, so they can't storm off. And then as they try and build a board presence to block, it's pretty hard to block with tapped creatures. Cure can get around it a little bit, but creates a real nuisance here. And we see Cliff here, down a mana because had to play that Glacial Fortress tapped thanks to Thalia.
Yeah, most likely what we're going to see here is, so we're going to go Chain to the Rocks, kill the Thalia, which allows us to cast the Omen for 2 mana because the Thalia is no longer in the battlefield. And then most likely, I believe we're going to see that the Glasspool Mimic here, sacrifice the Omen of the Sea, get the Mimic, copy the Titan, probably make another Rhino. Yeah, probably make a Rhino and gain life. At least that's kind of what I'm assuming is going to happen. But we'll see what Cliff decides to do.
Yeah, it looks like Cliff has the Gloom creature, the one that buys something back, kind of pulled up. Looks like we also have Skyclave Apparition. We might just be wanting to pick things apart just to try and beat Brave the Elements. That might be what Cliff here is playing with a little heads up, second Titan's really good, but like you mentioned, everything's green if I do that, so maybe Brave could steal this from me.
Right.
Looks like we are just going to pull that after thinking about
We're going.
Nothing wrong with just getting keyword big,
Yeah. 2 7/7s, 2 4/4s. You get a little bit of a life buffer too. And if we look at Cliff's life total, Cliff is going to go to 17, and James is only going to have, do my math real quick. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 power. Maybe, because the Mutavault doesn't get protection with the Brave the Elements. So with only 10 power and going to 17, this seems fine. So you're not going to die to Brave this turn. You should be able to get at least one untap, and from that point you can kind of, things just really will start snowballing out of control, especially maybe pick up Yorion, blink the Titan and the clone, and that's, boy, we're going deep at that point.
You really are. I wonder if James brought anything in Declaration. So in game 2 or game 1, sorry, if James didn't play much against this deck, we just saw Coma, we saw the jump, so maybe something like Deck and Stone where Fateful Absence wasn't brought in. But here it's kind of a weird situation where maybe it'd be something good where normally it's not something you're super excited about.
Yeah, Declaration in Stone, it's kind of tough. You did see, what Cliff is up to game 1. I feel like that's maybe not a card that you would necessarily want to bring in, because it seems like the games where Declaration in Stone is good are games that you're already maybe too far behind. Now, the one thing that James does have here I don't know why we're attacking with the Mutavault, but the one thing that James does have here is, I believe, 2 copies of Brave. So you could see something like attack Brave here, get in for the 10 points of damage, and then maybe next turn Brave as well. Now, there is a blocker here with the Deputy of Detention that can block. I guess it can't block any of the white creatures profitably. So, maybe if the Deputy chump blocks, you're totally fine with that because you get back to Luminarch Aspirant. So it looks like we're going to do some math here. My guess is that you put you obviously maybe just eat the Mutavault, take the 10, and then see what Cliff can come up with next turn.
Yeah, I think Cliff also has really close to just lethal on board. Now, James has a Hopeful Aspirant in hand, Hopeful Initiate, sorry. So we know it's not going to be lethal quite away, but this attack, I think is something that James has to do in order to beat Cliff. You just have to, try and kill him.
Didn't play a blocker. This is 23, right? 7, 14 plus 8, 22 plus the Deputy is 23.
I think so. Maybe I missaw James's hand. That's totally possible. Well, even if we had, we have Tolsimir for Wolves.
We got a Tolsimir too.
Yeah, so that would have cleaned things up here a little bit. We're gonna see this Tolsimir enter, clear a creature, gain 3 life, and then I think, like you mentioned, we have lethal as well. So unless there's some weird removal spell in James's hand, it's probably going to be game over. Even if it's not, we're at 13. So another Brave the Elements off the top wouldn't even be enough to get us out of this spot. We're just going to have Cliff here do some math and then probably attack in for the old lethal.
Yeah, as we talked about, just kind of going big. Cliff necessarily was just that one turn where you were able to the Hopeful Initiate was in play, so that your binding was going to be, your binding was no good if James had a land. Being able to convert that into the Titan of Industry just really kind of made it so James couldn't really attack. James stumbled a little bit on lands, and then once we were able to get the second Titan, there was just too much of a battlefield presence for Cliff, and it just kind of snowballed out of control from there. Now, looks like we're only lining up a couple of attacks here, so I don't think James has gained any life this game unless. Oh,
Soldier
you know
of the
what?
Pantheon.
There's the Soldier. I wonder how many multicolored spells Cliff has cast this game.
So we cast the Incarnation, the Deputy, and now Tolsimir. So that's 3 life. So I guess they're not lethal. We were 1 short before because we had 22 by that count, because we definitely haven't attacked before. So now we're just attacking for 20, leaving back our 1-3. Oh, but it looks like we can't win anyways. Yeah, totally understandable there. James is just going to be too far behind. But Soldier of the Pantheon does gain you some good amount of life there. And, we mentioned not a lot of multicolored spells. Soldier of the Pantheon, the card people keep talking about cutting. But Instant and stuff like that is sort of impressive.
Right, that was a very, very impressive showing for the Incarnation deck. Kind of exactly how you want to draw it up, just being able to curve Leyline Binding, the fact that it costs 1 mana, but it's also 6 mana value for the Incarnations as well. So being able to kind of curve that into that Incarnation, allowing you to put a 7-drop onto the battlefield as early as turn 4. It's just, that when you have that draw, that deck is so hard to beat.
Yep, and now both our Cliff and Harlan, there are 2 players who watch from the future match. They're both 2-0 in good position, on pace to top 8 this NRG 5K trial we have going on today. So many points, so much on the line here. Not only just money, but NRG champs at large. We have a lot of players in the field today trying to get those last few points. Season 3, we're in the middle of it right now, but it's going to come up sooner than it thinks when it comes to there. And so we're gonna, we're in the middle of the point race, and pretty soon here we have Chicago coming up. We're going to have our first Pioneer 10K trial. So that's for Season 3. It's going to be on November 26th and 27th. That's right after the RC, so you can get all the good deck lists from there, come out and play that, and then Sunday, the classic Modern 5K trial. Modern's such a sweet place. Yesterday, we saw so many great games, Devin. It was so cool to see. But that's not it. We still have more events left this year, even after the Chicago one. We have our NRG 20K weekend showdown. So Saturday, Louisville, Kentucky, December 10th through the 11th, $15,000 Modern. Now, what a showdown is, if you haven't watched some of our coverage before, is you win that event, you go straight to NRG champs. It is like winning an invitational type thing. You just get to go straight to that 16-person exclusive event. So exciting. Sunday, we have a 5K Pioneer trial there as well. Lots of points on the line for both of these. If you're someone in the point race as well, the showdown has double points, I believe, that weekend, meaning even if you don't get a strong finish, you're going to have a good one. But let's take a look at that leaderboard at large and talk about that champs a little more, because that is what all the players are playing for. This is our yearly leaderboard. After yesterday, Zach Allen has rocketed to the top of our leaderboard at 151 points and in the lead to be our player of the year so far, with a few events left like we just talked about. You might be wondering, what's the orange names? Orange names are players who have already qualified for NRG champs. So Jesse Robkin, Joseph Bernal, Andrew Elboger, Piper Powell, Connor Mullally, Ivan Esperino, all those players. Zach Dubin hiding on the corner there, all already qualified for NRG champs. And this is our yearly leaderboard, and we're going to have at-large spots as well. So, Zach Allen, Zoe Riedemann, Will Kruger, they are all in live position to make the NRG champs by having just a strong, good yearly present, which is so, so important. But there's also the seasonal leaderboard, which is so important. So we would love to, if you have a good, strong year, we want to reward you, but also we have the seasons. And so we see Zach Allen and Raja Suleiman both crushing season 3 right now in a prime position. So one way you can make our champs, like we talked about, is the yearly at large, which it looks like Zach Allen's in a great spot there. But also the top 2 players from the season 3 leaderboard will also make it. So Zach Allen kind of having the cake and eating it too here, completely dominating in the season 3 of things. But yeah, all these players are live. We saw Mac Indris in round 1. Very much live for NRG champs, played in last year's champs actually, and making another run for it, wants to go back and wants to play in that high stake event. And we see, Ivan and Andrew Ellenbogen here as well, no slouches as well. But NRG champs is going to be so exciting. That's going to be early next year. And it is the kind of the culmination of the NRG tour. That's what all these leaderboards and things are about, right? We love Magic. We love the fun weekend, but the leaderboard and sort of the dream and striving for getting to champs is what makes and breaks a lot of these things for players, and is kind of the driving factor where you see people like Zoe Riedemann, who we've seen at every single NRG event and plays on every single round because she is hungry for the champs.
Yeah, and even with somebody like Raja Suleiman, now what's that you said yesterday is that back-to-back top 8s, just having an absolute tear of a run here, and I would find it hard pressed to believe that Raja's not going to be qualified for that championship at the end of the year.
Well, hey, we have about 3 or 4 minutes left before the next round starts, so let's take a quick break. You go get some water, refresh yourself, and then come right back here and don't miss any more of the NRG 5K Pioneer Trial here happening from Fort Wayne.